Listeners from all planes, welcome to the Magic Story Podcast, your guide to the characters, world, and stories of Magic's multiverse. As always, I'm one of your co-hosts, Natalie.
And I'm your other co-host, Harless. For years now, we've taken y'all across the multiverse of magic. Our podcast has put a spotlight on over a dozen different settings since we started with Dominaria United, of course. We've taken you to a world of dinosaurs and vampires, a plane-spanning house controlled by a demon, and even into the far reaches of space.
And it's that diverse array of planes and settings that makes this multiverse so compelling. And that's what drew us into the game, like way back when. And I know that there's many other players who feel the same way as us. So today, we wanted to celebrate the multiverse's richness and depth with a trip through some of our all-time favorite planes.
That's right. Now, part of what makes these planes so captivating is the work of actually hundreds of magic artists who use their skills to bring the multiverse to life. Now, we both love the art of magic. We've been very vocal about that. But there are plenty of planes in the multiverse that we haven't gotten to shine a light on yet. So today, we're visiting and revisiting some of our personal favorite planes from throughout the multiverse, all while highlighting some brand new artwork from MTG Arena's Through the Omenpaths.
And Magic's artists captured the distinct tones and styles of each plane, and it really feels like you're traversing the Magic multiverse. It's all the fun of a voyage through the planes, without the danger of, getting stuck on a world of zombies.
Or werewolves, or vampires, or other creatures that go bump in the night, demons, etc., talking trees. With that, I think it's time we set a course for our first far out setting. So join us as we head into the multiverse.
Broadcasting live from Infinite Guideline Station, I'm Hilary Thompson from Wizards of the Coast, and you're now crossing over into the Edge. By the looks of your craft, you've been on quite the bumpy ride. Why don't you settle down on one of the many stellar planets in this system? Just steer clear of the black hole that's over the horizon. You're going to want to give it a wide berth. We've recently become the latest battleground in an intergalactic war for the fate of the stars themselves, so expect to see ships like the mighty Dawnsire in the skies above. But there's power beyond imagination. Out here, the stars are just the beginning.
So listeners of the podcast are likely familiar with The Edge, because we just wrapped up a season of the podcast that takes place in this setting, which is basically Magic's version of space.
Yeah, we covered the world building of that set. We had audiobooks for all 16 stories, and we recapped the whole saga with Roy Graham. And we only scratched the surface of what's probably one of the wildest sets in Magic.
Yeah, during Roy's episode, he even mentioned that he'd really love to see us return to this setting, and we're already getting a deeper look into the Edge in Through the Omenpaths. Here, we're seeing a greater emphasis placed on the cosmic and futuristic elements of the setting.
We get a look at some of those futuristic elements on Error 9, Viral Node by Steve Ellis. Apart from the name itself reading like a computer prompt, this gives us a look at the robots of the Edge, called Mechans. There's a less villainous option on the set's robot token, but I want to emphasize the unique style of the Edge's Mechans.
While the broader Magic multiverse's technological beings are more of a combination of wizardry and circuitry, these read as a lot more synthetic. But it's still Magic's version of robots, and the people who make those robots are straight out of the broader multiverse.
A lot of the Edge is sleek and refined, like its Mechans, but there's also a layer of grunge beneath it, which I really like. So the system showcased in Edge of Eternities, it surrounds a dying star. So that fixation of its mystery and impending doom, it extends across the Edge's inhabitants. This piece by Kev Fang, Ozor, Chronicler of Collapse, shows someone who has seen the collapse of multiple moons, with the possibility of future destruction on the horizon.
And there's plenty of mystery within the Edge, which shows up in glimpses on the cards. You can look into the heart of a dying star on Coracle of the Void, Tragic Trajectory, and Alfariel, Stone Chosen. We get some more glimpses of the setting in some of these new pieces, like the mysterious energy portal on Remarkable Readings, and the strange workings of the Ilvoy on Robotics Mastery.
The Edge is a massive setting with just so much content, But it's that sense of scale that really keeps us asking questions and wondering what could be out there and craving more content from the Edge. It usually takes some time for Magic fans to adapt to a new setting, but I've seen a lot of chatter online, especially of folks really clamoring for more content from the Edge. So it's really exciting we're getting this so soon.
Yeah. Well, for those of you who are eagerly counting down the days until we return to the far reaches of space, me included, we hope that Through the Omenpaths satiated your cosmic curiosity. Now that we've rounded out our content for the Edge, let's take a closer look at the inner circle of the Magic multiverse. And I know just the place to do it. Let's head to Ravnica, the city of guilds.
Visit the plane-spanning city of Ravnica, a world where 10 guilds exist in a not-so-harmonious balance for control of the plane. Millennia ago, the guild's 10 founders brokered a magical guild pact, written so that none of them could usurp the others. And since the formation of that guild pact, the guilds have searched for a way to do just that. Though no outright conflict is waged between the guilds, they exist in a state of Cold War in which subterfuge, espionage, and political maneuverings are the chosen weapons of war. But even as some seek to disrupt the delicate balance of the plane, there are those who still see Ravnica for what it is, or what it can be. A place where the guilds can offer a community to those without one. A place where every citizen of the plane can find their home.
So even if you haven't experienced a Magic set that takes place on Ravnica, you've probably heard the names of its guilds. These two-color factions are baked into the Magic fan base's language. I mean, that's how influential they are.
Absolutely. So let's run through them really fast. There's 10 guilds, one for each color pair. So first we have the Azorius Senate. These are lawmakers and politicians. Next up we have House Demir. This is a secretive syndicate of spies and assassins. Next is one of my favorites, the Cult of Rakdos. They are pain-worshipping sorcerers who answer to a demon who we actually got to see a little bit of in Murders at Karlov Manor, which was super fun. We have the Gruul clans. They're anarchist rebels who defend the Ravnican wilderness, which kind of sounds anachronistic, but works. The Selesnya Conclave. They're agriculturists, healers, and controllers. We next have the Orzhov Syndicate. This is like part church, part bank, but all power, right? Next up is the Izzet League. They're innovators and inventors with a lot of really fiery ideas. Next, we have the Golgari Swarm, keepers of Ravnica's sewers and rot. The Boros Legion, soldiers with strength and numbers and, of course, swords. And finally, the Simic Combine. These are mad scientists with an affinity for manipulating biology.
While dividing a setting into multiple factions seems natural today, it's important to remember Ravnica is the foundation that this kind of world building was built on. Tarkir's clans, Strixhaven's colleges, New Capenna's families, all of these owe their existence to Ravnica.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the persistence of Ravnica's guilds, it really speaks to something unique about Magic, which is its world building and concepts can be broadly applied not just in universe, but in the real world. So I can look at myself and I can say, well, I have these aspects of my personality, so I'd probably be a green-red character, right? And by making these concepts of color pairs into concrete factions, players have something they can really glom onto. And what I also love and think is fascinating about this is that when I started playing Magic versus now, my affiliation has changed and pivoted.
Oh, yeah. You've changed over time.
Once you kind of learn like what you like playing and how it represents like not just like your personality, but your play style, right?
Yeah.
Like you kind of adapt to it, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, what I found is that I started with two colors and then I've slowly kind of like played around with a third color over like, okay, I am red-white all the way. I'm Boros.
Oh, yeah.
But then I played around with like, maybe red, white, black.
Yeah.
Maybe red, white, blue.
Ooh,
I've played around with like different things. So it's like, yeah, like the play styles and the personality can absolutely change with you.
Absolutely.
So Magic players treat these guilds like almost like sports teams, right? And like any sport, there's some rivalry between teams. And while these guilds were founded to keep the peace, we've seen how shaky that peace can be.
Absolutely. A lot of sets based on Ravnica focus on political espionage and trickery. We see how tensions might flare up between the guilds on pieces like Laszlo, Enthusiastic Accuser by Olivier Bernard. If the peace between the guilds were to break, things could get really messy really fast, which we've seen nearly happen on each of our visits to this plane.
You know, case in point, during our last visit with murders at Karlov Manor, we saw a massive plot to usurp the guild's rule nearly come to pass. And luckily that was foiled through some clever detective work and the assistance of some off-plane allies, but it just shows how fragile the guild's peace can be.
But it's that tension between the guilds that just encourages both casual competitiveness between friends, but it also fuels the stories on the planes themselves. So if we're heading to Ravnica, chances are political trickery and subterfuge are afoot.
But what if I'm looking for something, you know, more peaceful, something more spiritual? Our next plane is a synthesis of the Edge's technological advancements and the arcane powers of ancient magic. It's time to return to a fan-favorite plane, Kamigawa.
Where technology meets magic, tradition meets modernity, and the realm of the living meets the realm of spirits. This is Kamigawa, a place of unimaginable innovation and beauty. 1,200 years ago, the spirits known as the Kami waged war with the mortals of the plane. Many lives were lost, but Empress Michiko Kanda soon brokered a peace with the Kami. Now, in our modern era, Kamigawa exists as two worlds in harmony. The mortals, filled with imaginative curiosity, have developed advanced technology. The spirits find themselves enmeshed with this revitalized plane. The Kami realm was once in its own dimension, cut off from the rest of the plane, but now the material and spirit realms have begun to merge. Glowing with neon and spiritual energy, this new Kamigawa holds beauties and mysteries like the multiverse has never seen.
So one of my favorite things about Kamigawa is how its in-world history mirrors its real-world development. So we were first introduced to this plane in the original Champions of Kamigawa block, that was back in 2004. And as time went on, we would eventually return to the plane in 2022's Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, where the setting was given a futuristic edge.
Kamigawa Neon Dynasty drew from a lot of cyberpunk and science fiction media, but a huge part of the set's appeal came from how it kept a lot of the spiritual and cultural themes from the original block.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see how much technology has advanced on the plane in artwork like Kumonosu, The Watchful by Joe Slucher.
This shows a piece of tech by Kamigawa's futurists, and it embodies that group's goals of constant technological innovation. And I just love the way the pieces of this look like they're magnetized together. All the mechs on Kamigawa have these distinct visual cues that I just adore.
I am just so enamored that maintaining the connection to the plane's spirits, called the Kami, and their spiritual role is just so important on this plane, not just to our designers, but to the denizens of the plane. One of the most spiritual fixtures in the mortal realm is Boseiju.
This massive tree has seen the Kami War of ages past, the rise of a new empire, and, as we all remember, the invasion of New Phyrexia. And the modern-day Boseiju was first seen on Boseiju, Who Endures, from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Boseiju was severely damaged during the invasion, as seen on Tawashi from March of the Machine.
I remember both of these art pieces so well.
Me too.
Because it was just, it was like heart-wrenching to watch it play out. However, we get to see this tree in its prime on Julian Koch Junwen's vibrant cityscape from Through the Omenpaths.
The branches of the tree are woven into the very shape of the city, acting as this very literal representation of where the Kami and material realms collide.
There's so many cute details in this piece, like the Kami crossing the bridge in the lower third. If you look up at the skyline, too, you can see a spirit dragon just drifting above the buildings.
And there's a reason we wanted to put a focus on Kamigawa. It embodies so much of what we, personally, love about Magic. For players who have been engaged with the game for years, it calls back to a fan favorite block. But for new players, it offers a unique setting you can't find anywhere other than Magic.
Especially visually, it's just so stunning. All right, well, I think we've had our fill of safety for now. So let's swing around to the other end of the spectrum and return to a relatively newer plane. The door to the house has opened. Enter, and you may find yourself trapped on Duskmorn.
Somewhere, in an alley on Ravnica or Kamigawa, a door opens. Mist rolls out from it, the heavy stench of rotten plywood pooling at your feet. This door leads to Duskmourn, the house that is not a home. Do you dare enter? Take that step in, and you may find yourself at the mercy of the murderous Razorkin, or caught in the jaws of a towering beastie. Get lucky, and you can find sanctuary in the comfort of your fellow survivors. But just because someone isn't wearing a demon's face doesn't make them an ally. They may answer to the one who slumbers in the heart of the plane, Valgavoth, whose wings enfold all who live and die on Duskmourn.
Duskmourn takes contemporary horror, we're talking slasher movies, body horror, psychological thrillers, all my favorites, and gives them a home within the magic multiverse, pun very much intended with the home there.
We've seen the origin of Duskmourn play out on the cards and in some of the fiction we remember. This is The House Grows Hungry by Carlos Palma Cruchaga. Let's walk through the story and this artwork.
Ages ago, the plane looked quite different. It had all the natural trappings of a normal world. Beautiful cities, fantastical creatures, 2 suns. But
normal.
Normal. And all that changed when the young Marina Vendrell moved to a new home.
Marina was bullied by her fellow students and grew very withdrawn and resentful. And somewhere, locked deep within her new home, she encountered a strange entity. And this new friend offered her the power to exact her revenge.
But poor Marina has been tricked. We don't trust ancient demons in our homes. I feel like that's
rule
that's
number
common
1.
knowledge now.
Yeah,
I get it. She's young. She's learning. Okay.
Yeah.
She hasn't read quite as many horror books as I have at this point.
That's very true. Yeah.
Because this is not a well-meaning entity whatsoever. No. This is the elder demon known as Valgavoth. And with Marina's deal, Valgavoth was free to spread his wings and envelop the entire plane, enfolding it within his wings.
With Valgavoth having become the very foundations of the plane, and the walls, and the ceiling, and the furniture, his power grew, making him a prime godhead for any enterprising cultist. The cult of Valgavoth seeks to feed and grow their demonic leader, having either been promised power or driven mad by this house of horrors. Chosen by Valgavoth by Nils Ham shows us 2 cultists who glimpse the power of Valgavoth.
Looking at the members of this cult, you'll notice a pattern of moths in their artwork. And this was something spearheaded by Ovidio Cartagena, who discussed this aspect on the plane on that episode of the Magic Story podcast. So go back and check that out if you haven't, because that was just a really cool detail from his own life he pulled into the set.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite world building episodes that we ever did on the podcast. So it was amazing.
Agreed.
And that moth teeth
Get out.
was super prominent in Duskmourn House of Horror, where we saw it on cards like Demonic Council or the commander version of Death Reap Ritual. And it extends into Through the Omenpaths on art pieces like Mothwing Shroud by Andrew Marr.
Now, it would not be horror without a focus on the survivors of the plane. While the odds are certainly stacked against them, all of them, they do have moments of triumph, one of which we see on Christy Balanescu's spectacular tactics. Just look at the way she depicts the light here. It's absolutely stunning. And I'm very partial to this card because I did competitive cheerleading when I was younger. And I like to think that if I was in a horror movie,
yeah.
I would be able to toe touch kick my way out of it.
Yeah. For sure. If anyone could do it, you could, Harless.
Thank you.
Yeah. As we round out our trek through the multiverse, let's head to a place with a bit more sunlight, but still plenty of danger. Draw your swords and rally your animal companions. We're headed to Ikoria.
From the towering walls of Drenith, a soldier spots something on the horizon. Its frame dwarfs the mountain beside it, spines like branches of a tree shooting from its back. The beast's roar nearly knocks them from their feet, and it's only then that they notice the creatures in the sky above. The monsters are approaching, and they must answer the call. On Ikoria, monsters of all shapes, sizes, and mutations have claimed dominion over the plane. A few holdouts of human civilization remain, such as the militarized city of Drenith, but some seek peace between humanity and the monsters, forming magical bonds between the two. And when your opponent might grow fangs in an instant, or your ally might turn their sword against you, it's good to have a four-legged friend at your side.
Ikoria is a fascinating plane that we haven't seen much of outside of the original set, so returning to it here is a very welcome surprise. Now, while the original Ikoria Lair of Behemoth set is better known as the home of Loris and Gigantha, there's plenty more to that plane than 60 card powerhouses.
We mentioned it earlier, but one of Ikoria's most unique aspects is the bond between a human bonder and monsters. On Ikoria, there's this magical bond called the Eluda, and it's a spiritual link that allows a bonder and a monster to communicate on a deeper level. It's important to mention that this isn't a bond of ownership. The bonder doesn't control the monster. Instead, it's a mutually beneficial relationship, one built on trust and a deep connection. And one of my favorite examples of this bond is from our first trip to Ikoria. It's a set of 3 cards: Forbidden Friendship, Capture Sphere, and Cathartic Reunion. And it tells a story of a bonder meeting a monster, seeing them get captured, then reuniting after the monster was freed.
It also makes it hit so much harder when in Phyrexia we get a glimpse of Ikoria and see how twisted that bond becomes. Oh, yeah. It makes it so much more brutal.
Yep.
Now, an animal companion doesn't just offer a cuddly or not so cuddly, depending on your monster here, friend. It offers protection from Ikoria's most fearsome creatures. Here, beasts are known to sporadically mutate. This is seen on some pretty wild creature designs, like on Skittering Kitten by Darachenko Alexander.
Now, an important part of all of these weird and wacky designs are Ikoria's crystals. And these are mysterious fixtures of the plane tied to the Ozolith. These are all over Ikoria. And they grow and change and in much of the same way as the monsters do. And we even saw them return on the Ikorian Multiverse Legends cards from March of the Machine, where the original 10 companions were given new art with a frame to match.
But not all humans rely on the Eluda, as some reside in these massive fortresses of civilization. And these can range from the heavily militarized Dranith or the fiery lava brink. While resistant to the idea of bonders, these cities offer protection from the more threatening beasts, and they've developed unique ways of leveraging ingenuity over the raw power of these creatures.
We actually see one of those instances on Lava Brink Repels the Magmaloth by Tiffany Terrell. Here, a group of human knights are able to fend off this massive creature that would easily take them out if it were a one-on-one fight. But whether it's a bonder and a monster, or a group of soldiers, teamwork is the key to victory on Ikoria.
Now, not all monsters are the towering kaiju of Ikoria. Sometimes a monster is the manifestation of an emotion, some of my favorites in Duskmourn, a trickster fae who's ready to play a prank on you at the drop of a pen. So let's head to our final stop for today, the idyllic plane of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor.
Welcome to the pastoral world of Lorwyn, where Kithkin rally their knights to defend their farms from rambunctious giants, fairies meddle with the minds of boggarts, and enigmatic elementals harbor secrets beyond imagination. But beyond the light of the Lorwyn sun lies a dark side, one that reminds us that nothing is as it seems on this plane. Enter Shadowmoor, where all that is light becomes dark. Here, the Kithkin raise armies and drive out roguish merfolk. Elves slink into their homes and hide from what they see as the spoiled beings of the plane. And between day and night is a mysterious force that controls the transformation of those who live on the plane. Welcome, traveler, to the realm where two become one, Lorwyn and Shadowmoor.
We are rounding out today's episode by looking to the past and the future, which is fitting for the dual-natured plane of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor. Now, we don't want to spoil too much ahead of our return to the plane with Lorwyn eclipsed, but we do want to make sure you're just as excited as we are to head back.
Also, we can't do an entire episode about beautiful magic artwork and not talk about Lorwyn. Our first visit to the plane established a lot of the visual motifs of the plane, and those have carried over into Lorwyn Eclipsed and beyond. Players, including us, love the look of this plane, so instead of reinventing it, the artists just applied their own style to the established look and feel. It's a wonderful medley of old and new.
A great example of this is the fairies on Lorwyn. So a lot of them have these spindly proportions that make them look almost insectile, which is a pretty stark departure from the general conception of what a fairy is. But even though it might look different, that's what makes it uniquely Lorwyn. And our Funky Fae are back on Diana Franco's Detect Intrusion.
Across our visits to this plane, we've seen the setting itself and some individual creatures shift between their Lorwyn and Shadowmoor states. This shift was originally due to a phenomenon called the Great Aurora, which appears on a magic card of the same name, illustrated by none other than Sam Burley.
And let's be honest, if you want a landscape piece and you want it done well, you call Sam Burley. I mean, among so many other magic artists, but definitely Sam Burley, and he's done a great job on this piece. Now, Burley depicts the magical transformation of the plane using this stunning warbling effect on the lights.
And if you're curious what exactly the Great Aurora is, its role on the plane, and who created it, we've got an episode coming down the pipeline in the near future. But for now, we'll shine a spotlight on an unappreciated creature type, the giants of Lorwyn.
Looking at the original Lorwyn set, you see a lot of slumbering giants. And that's not just because they're just sleepy little guys. It's an important part of who they are, because while they're dreaming, these giants are able to divine a sort of grand purpose for themselves. So sleep really is essential for them.
They have the capacity for haphazard destruction. See Crush Underfoot or Giant's Ire for more on that. But they aren't one-note creatures. Cards like Mariah Tecolvi's Reprieve or Claudio Posas's Giant Craft Helm show a more light-hearted side to the giants of Lorwyn.
Now, sure, there's always going to be something grisly like Titan's Revenge on the plane, but for every one of those, there's also a Triclopean sight to remind us of how beautiful this world can be.
There are all these cool concepts in the multiverse that just get your mind racing. And it's the work of artists, illustrators, creative text writers, fiction authors, editors, and all sorts of others who bring this to life. Looking at a set like Through the Omenpaths feels like a catalog of all of the best parts of the game's world building.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about walking around at MagicCon is having people kind of open a new card, look at it, and out loud wonder about the world that that card is in, the character that's on that card, or some other, or just notice something in the background and be like, oh, that's really cool. And knowing what we do from working here about like, oh, that this was there because of this decision that was made by this person, or that artist, went above and beyond and added this into the background on their own and really gave it their own spin. I just think that's so cool. And I completely agree, having this all together is just really, it's fun. It's cool to see it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the work of so many individuals who kind of make those little moments happen.
Absolutely.
Right?
One card is touched by so many different people.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed hearing about these planes as much as we enjoyed talking about them. You can see all the art pieces we showed off today and more in the Through the Omenpaths card image gallery. And there's so much that we didn't have time to get to. So I highly recommend just checking that out. It's really worth your time. And who knows, you might just find your new favorite Magic plane.
Through the Omenpaths will be available on MTG Arena on September 23rd. And as for us, we're hard at work getting ready for our own journey through the Omenpaths as we head to Lorwyn for Lorwyn Eclipsed. There's plenty to cover from 2026's Magic lineup, and we can promise you that you won't want to miss it. We'll see you later this year on the Magic Story podcast. As always, I'm Natalie.
And I'm Harless.
And I'm your intrepid guide to the multiverse, Hilary, signing off from the middle of Lorwyn.
Listeners, thank you for joining us on this trip through the Omenpaths. Until next time, have a magical day.